And in fact, I got stuck. I got left in places sometimes. The attitude about addiction in this place from some of the staff members was concerning. How can this program just kick people out without like properly evicting them? Good morning. Breakfast. So I want to talk a little bit more about the topic of my last video, my first video, about the transitional housing program I was in. That video was very long, but I actually had to cut a lot for time, and there was a lot of things that I didn't even talk about because it was getting so long. I was running out of storage space on my phone. So yeah, let's get into it. I'm going to talk a little bit more this time about the overall like systemic issues with this kind of program and the specific things that happened in this program that made it actually difficult to get the care that was promised to me. In the last video, I talked about sort of the interpersonal drama aspect of it and sort of grazed over the systemic stuff because, I mean, I was talking mostly about the director and how bad she was at her job. But there is also a systemic side to it which complicated things a whole lot. So first of all, why didn't I get a job? Well, there's a couple reasons I didn't get a job when I was there. It just didn't seem like a good idea to me at the time. I was recovering from severe burnout from working multiple different jobs throughout my adult life up until that point, and not being able to maintain them, which led me to homelessness multiple times. And I already knew that I had difficulty maintaining a job and that it would be crushing for my mental health to attempt it again. So that was the first and foremost reason. I was trying to get on disability, kind of a pipe dream at my age. You really have to be like on death's door to get disability at a young age in this country, which is another systemic issue, but that's a wider thing. The other reason I didn't think it was a good idea to get a job at that program is because I didn't have transportation. I did get my car running at the end, but that was when I was already fed up with the program and I just wanted to get out of there. But for most of it, I didn't have any kind of transportation, and they didn't provide transportation. They provided limited transportation to medical appointments, but anything else you wanted transportation for, it wasn't going to happen. It wasn't guaranteed at the very least. And this is because they were understaffed, and they had two vehicles, a van and a minivan, and to provide transportation, but they just never had enough staff on staff at any given time to be available for providing the transportation. And in fact, I got stuck. I got left in places sometimes. I did actually get, at one point, a ride to the local community college so that I could do a little bit of research on the admission process and try to get that ball rolling, because I was also trying to get into college while I had the opportunity. But they left me there. They drove me there, and then they went to do some other transports or some other work or whatever, I don't know. And then when I was done, I called them and I said, hey, come pick me up. And they said, okay, we'll be there in like 15 minutes. And then an hour and a half and 3 more phone calls later, I was still there. I was still left there, just, chilling in front of this college. And I had to call my friend who had just gotten kicked out of the program to come pick me up and, risk getting a trespass charge to take me home. You couldn't rely on them to get you to places if you needed to get somewhere. They tried to do like bus passes and things like that, but the best that they could do was help people learn how to apply for bus passes, and whatever the city provides in that aspect is what the city provides. And there was no free transportation on the bus either. I don't want to walk in whatever weather conditions to get to my job. I don't want to have a job in the first place that's going to crush my mental health while I'm trying to rest and recover. And on top of that, they would have taken some of my money. As soon as I had an income, they told me right from the very beginning that if I ever had an income, I had to report it to them so that they could take a portion of it for rent. Of course, the insurance company wouldn't have to pay so much for me to be there. And they said it was about $600. $600 every month is what they would have taken from me. Now, if I was in an apartment and I was paying $600 of rent out of my income, that would be reasonable. But I was in this program for the housing. So having to pay for my housing just didn't make any sense to me. And I thought I could do better things with my time here. While I'm not burdened by a job, I can actually do research online and try to get on disability and work with government benefits and do my best, try to find some other income stream, get my car running. I had other things and other priorities other than having a job, which would drain my mental health, and they would be taking some of my money. Like, I might as well just get an apartment at that point. It would have been very difficult to save. So let me talk about the rehab, the drug and alcohol rehab aspect, because this program is not actually a rehab. That's a very important distinction to make. This program provided drug and alcohol rehabilitation support and services, but was not actually a rehab. In fact, their strategy, if they ever found out that one of their members was doing drugs, was to send them to a third-party rehab that they were not affiliated with. And this happened multiple times while I was there to other people, but you can't go to rehab for weed. If you're smoking weed, they won't accept you into rehab for that kind of thing, because guess what? Weed isn't that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal. Whoa. It's not heroin, it's not meth, oh my god, it's just weed. So you can't go to rehab for weed. So if they ever found out that the members were smoking weed, rather than sending them to a rehab where they'd be there for like a month and then they come back to the program, their strategy for weed was just to kick you out. If you're smoking weed, they'll firmly say quit doing that for a few months, and if you don't quit, then they kick you out. As I mentioned in the last video, I did quit, and then they accused me of lying because of a typo on the drug test. So this is, the kind of rehab services that this place is providing. The attitude about addiction in this place from some of the staff members was concerning. The reason they were so concerned about me smoking weed is because they're dealing with other people that are doing harder drugs and that have very bad addictions. And so people do lie about doing drugs, and they do falsify their drug tests by dipping the cup into the toilet water and things like that. So that is a thing that happens, and they suspected me of doing something like that because of the typo on my drug test. And so that's why they accused me of lying. However, if I was addicted to something and I was actually lying about quitting and falsifying my drug tests, and they came at me with the attitude that they did, it would not have been productive for my addiction. It was not a supportive environment. It was a very judgmental and shameful environment in regards to drugs. It was very much like, just don't do drugs, and if you do them, we're going to send you away. And when you come back, if you do it again, we're going to send you away again. And also, we're going to treat you like a dirty, lying junkie the whole time. If I was addicted to drugs, I would not want to be in the care of a system like that. This program really did nothing to actually prevent people from doing drugs. There were people drinking, there were people doing meth, there were people snorting coke, there were people doing all kinds of drugs in that program. And there was really nothing they could do about it other than, once they catch people, send them away to rehab, which also I assume has its own problems because they always came back and did more drugs. So the rehab didn't work either. They're forcing members to comply with this no drugs thing and not actually helping them. The idea is that if they're found doing drugs, they get sent to rehab, and when they come back, then they can work on their mental health with the therapists and in the group therapy and all that to find better coping mechanisms, essentially. The problem with that is that this program didn't actually provide adequate mental health care, and it didn't provide adequate coping mechanisms, and it didn't provide opportunity for coping mechanisms. The director used to be the secretary, and when she was the secretary, she ran certain group therapies, the art therapy and the music therapy. She was the one that did those. And apparently when she was promoted to director, she didn't have time to do those groups anymore, but she still wanted to do them, and she didn't want anybody else to do them. So she didn't allow anybody else to do them until months of begging from the members and from the staff. Can we please have group therapy? Can we please have art therapy? Can we please go outside sometimes? Can we go do therapy at the park or something, because we're so bored being cooped up in this group therapy room every day from 9 a.m. to post noon every single day. And then we just go home. We don't have transportation to get anywhere. Most of us don't have jobs. We don't have money. We don't have any way to entertain ourselves. And it's like, well, you could come to the office and pick up a movie and then go watch a movie in your apartment. Most of us don't even have TVs because you're not providing things. All you provide is like a couch and a bed in the apartments. It was just a very boring situation to be in, and people were antsy. People were looking for anything to entertain themselves, and so of course they go to their drug addictions for that kind of thing. So eventually, finally, we got more things to do in the form of art therapy and music therapy. We actually started doing something called Breakfast Club. There were some other things too, but I was the one that was in charge of Breakfast Club. I signed up for it because I enjoy cooking. I love cooking. I like cooking for people. Every Thursday we would do also a community meal, which was like a lunchtime meal. And the office had a small kitchen where the program could buy things and the members could cook for the other members. And so on Thursdays I really enjoyed cooking lunch for people. And so I signed up for Breakfast Club so I could make breakfast. And I got to do Breakfast Club like 4 times, I think, for like a month I did it. Or maybe only 3 even, before it was taken away from me. Because I wasn't going to the group therapies, this was the director's punishment to try to get me to come to the office and attend group therapies more by taking away my one incentive to come to the office and go to group therapies, which was that on Mondays I got to cook breakfast for people. Not only that, but the director messed up Breakfast Club multiple times. I mean, maybe there was some issues, challenges that she was facing that made it difficult to make this go smoothly. At the same time, she definitely didn't seem to care, and she didn't communicate with me enough. The week before, I would write a list of ingredients and what I'm going to make for breakfast, and I would give that list to her, and she would go buy the ingredients on the day and then come into the office at her usual time, which was 7 a.m. And then I would also have to come into the office at 7 a.m. So I was waking up early. On the days that I did breakfast, I woke up early and I came to the office, I made breakfast, and then I went to the groups. But what happened is that I would give her the ingredients list and then she would get the wrong things. Like one time I was making breakfast burritos, so I asked for tortillas, and she got me the smallest tortillas, the smallest little tortillas that she could possibly get. And I had to make little but I also asked for the appropriate amount of ingredients for the inside of the burritos to be large, regular sized burritos. And so she got me the normal amount of inside ingredients, but not enough tortilla to put the inside ingredients inside of. And so I had to make little tiny breakfast burritos. Literally, they were the smallest little things you've ever seen. People thought they were cute. It went well. I also made some omelets and stuff with extra eggs. I asked for certain things, and she gets me things that are substitutes without conferring with me to make sure that that would work. And then on the day, I get there and I have to figure out how to make it work. And that happened with the community meal too. It wasn't just Breakfast Club that happened. And of course, I was coming into the office early. When I intend to be on time for something, I am on time for it. And so I would come in at 6:50, 5 minutes earlier than when I was supposed to be there, and I would be there at 7 a.m. when I was supposed to be there, and when the director was supposed to be there, and she was late almost every time. Almost every time she was late. So it was just very obvious to me that she didn't care about this as much as I did. I really enjoyed doing it, and the other members really enjoyed my cooking. It was a great incentive for both me and for them to come in early. And then because I wasn't going to the groups on the weekends and doing the 6 p.m. phone call, the director basically said, "You're not doing Breakfast Club anymore. That's your punishment." So let's talk about the evictions. How can this program just kick people out without properly evicting them, right? There was no actual eviction process. It was essentially, once you're discharged from the program, you don't have a right to be in the housing anymore, and the director of the program can absolutely get you charged with trespassing for showing up again if she wants to. Some people had to come back to the office after they were discharged for paperwork reasons and things like that. But if she didn't like somebody, if somebody pissed her off before they got discharged, then she wouldn't allow them to come back for any reason. Now, how can people just get kicked out without a proper eviction process? Well, it's because of the fact that we were on paper still technically homeless. All of the members were technically still homeless on paper. Our names were nowhere on the paperwork regarding the housing. The program is leasing these apartments from an apartment complex, and it's the program's name that is on the lease, not ours. We just are essentially guests that are living there, and so they can kick us out indiscriminately with all they have to do is discharge us from the program, and that means we have no right. So there was no housing rights, essentially. They not found necessarily, but there was sort of a glaring loophole in the housing aspect of the program is that we don't actually have a right to our housing, and we can get kicked out indiscriminately. And I brought this up. I was like, isn't this housing discrimination? Isn't this illegal? And the answer was basically, well, your name isn't on the lease, so no, it's not illegal. They really could just kick us out. And the director used this as a way to just get rid of people that she didn't like my friend, for example. And after the murder had happened, the director started using threats of violence also as an excuse to mistreat people, because she was saying essentially, well, I didn't take that seriously, so now I have to take everything seriously. So if anybody got even the least bit angry, you can tell the difference between somebody that's really insistent and really believes and really wants to do the things that they're saying, and somebody that's just blowing off steam. You can tell the difference because somebody that really wants to do it will continually say it over and over and over again, and even talk about the plans that they have, the specific plans that they have, whereas somebody that's just blowing off steam is going to be okay the next day. They might even come and apologize. But the director after the murder happened, she treated everything the same. Another major issue with this program, the fact that it is sort of a whole package type of care. It sounds great. It does sound like a really nice thing that you get, drug and alcohol, you get housing, and you get therapy, and you get case management and all this stuff. It sounds amazing to have access to all of those things in one place. The problem is that people with various levels of support needs were all put together in the same place as well. So you've got people like the man that ended up murdering his roommate, next to people like me who are just a little bit depressed and anxious and have social issues, next to elderly people that should really be in an elderly care home. In fact, there was one elderly woman was in the program for way too long. She could not attend the group therapies, and of course the director was asking her to repeatedly, but she had severe health issues, and she would come to the group therapies like she was told in order to keep her housing, same as me. And she would there were multiple times she was leaning over, she was tired, she was struggling to breathe, she passed out one time, and everybody around was saying, this woman does not belong here. She belongs somewhere where she can get medical care. Why is she here trying to get therapy when what she needs is elderly medical care? And eventually they did transfer her out to another facility that could take care of her better. But unfortunately there was another elderly man who was in a similar situation. He was a bit healthier, but he was similarly he shouldn't have been here. There was no reason for him to be here in this program, and he had a heart attack and died while I was in the program. And of course, it could be theorized that if he was in an elderly care facility, that he would have gotten immediate medical care for this cardiac arrest, and he may have survived. So you've got people of all kinds of support needs in one place together. And it's a similar issue with the psychiatric hospitals where I've been hospitalized. When you get a whole bunch of mentally ill people of various levels of need in one place together, not only is it hard to take care of all of them at once, but they end up getting into arguments with each other. They end up getting into fights. They have breakdowns that bother other people, that trigger more breakdowns, and it's just not a good time. Especially when they're in a place where they're not getting adequate care and they're being told or gaslit into believing that somehow it's their fault because they're just not doing a good enough job, or because they don't want the help that this place is providing. Another issue with this wholesale care model of this program is that we weren't even allowed to have care from other places while we were in the program. For some reason, it was like I don't know exactly what the reason was, but they said, well, you're coming to group therapies, you have an individual therapist, we provide you with a case manager, we provide you with a psychiatrist, and we provide you with housing. There's no reason for you to go somewhere else, right? If you're not satisfied with your therapist here or with either of the two therapists that we have here, if you're not satisfied with the way group therapies are run, if you're not satisfied with the case management, you cannot opt out. There's no opting out of these things, and there's no going to somebody else. So if you're not satisfied with your therapist, for example, you have to, in order to get another therapist, which is something that should be allowed and should be normalized, you need to find a therapist that's good for you. In order to get another therapist, you would have to give up everything else that this program was providing, including the housing and all that. So again, I was only there for the housing, and I was dissatisfied with the care, and I would have gone to another therapist, and I would have gone to another case manager if I was given the opportunity. Why didn't we take legal action? We considered it. I really genuinely did consider taking legal action against this program. But my case manager worked for the program, and while the staff members were generally very on our side when it comes to the director being bad at her job and the systemic issues, they were also afraid for their jobs. They wanted to keep their jobs. And there was no way that my case manager, there's no way she was going to help me sue the company that she works for or take legal action of any kind against the company that she works for while she's still working there. There was just no way that was going to happen. And so if any of the members wanted to take legal action, they would have had to either do it completely on their own. So these people, again, have been like homeless, they've been disabled, they're mentally ill, they have drug addiction issues, and they don't have the wherewithal and the experience to be able to deal with an attorney like that. And some of them, I'm sure, have dealt with attorneys like custody lawyers and things like that, divorce lawyers and things like that. But nobody in that program had ever sued a company before. So that just wasn't like really on the table. After I left the program, of course, I was homeless, and everybody leaving that program that wasn't satisfied with their care ended up homeless, which also would have made it extremely difficult to pursue legal action. And everybody that left that program satisfied with their care and able to pursue legal action would not have wanted to. So there was an investigation on the director from the corporate entity that owns the program, but there was no legal investigation. There was no police investigation or detective or anything like that, because none of the members really had the resources to take legal action. Yeah, so I mean, in conclusion, that's the rub. That's the kind of resources that we have as homeless and disabled and mentally ill people and people in poverty in this country. That's what we're dealing with. So I hope this story sheds some light on the struggles that people in this country are facing when it comes to, getting out of the pits, right? Out of poverty, out of homelessness, out of mental illness, out of depression, all of that stuff. These are the resources that we have available to us to aid with those struggles, and they don't work. At least it didn't in this case, and I've had similar experiences in other places. Programs like this, they really do hurt more than they help in a lot of cases. They can help very rarely. They can really help somebody get off their feet if their goals align with that of the program's goals for its members. But if your goals don't align with a program like that, it's going to be a difficult time. Anyway, like I said in the last video, since leaving the program, I have been doing a lot better for myself. Even when I was panhandling, which wasn't a great situation, I was still happier than I was in the program. I'm on my way to getting a van with that fundraiser that I'm doing, which again, I'll leave a link in the description for the fundraiser if you'd like to support me that way. And if you like the video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel to follow my journey out of homelessness if you are interested in that. And thank you so much for watching, and have a peaceful day.